Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name is Clint Button and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 26 of the virtual stone carving apprenticeship. We're getting down to the wire. I'm wrapping this stone up. I did do a little bit more work yesterday. The weather yesterday afternoon was so perfect, you just want to stay and work forever. So I settled in and flattened this up a little more. I'm going to do just a little bit of tuning on the other sides and then just strip this panel off. I'll make sure to use my longer carbide on the edges, my shorter carbide where I can to get the most out of my tools. I want to run them until they run out of carbide. But it's coming really well. Then I'll be able to pull the crown down on these other sides and resolve some of the collapse where I've had some crystals fall. We got one here and here and a little bit of crumble right here, and that'll all come right off with the crown. So and that's part of what I was talking about with the Dormer Capital. I produced those 4 panels that were all in a single plane, and I got the centers of those very, very true. They were dead flat, and then I just slowly worked my way to them. And so I'll do that the same here. I got this flat and this it's a little different, but I'll pull this crown down to make it match. And I can work from the side that's more stable to do the finish work, which is why I'll finish it on these sides. Okay, so I did want to mention, you have to be careful when you get down to this level. These corners are pretty dangerous because you can bump them with a tool. You can slip with a chisel and run off and catch it with an edge or even the center of the chisel and stun it or pop it off. You can move your suction and you just give it a quick yank and all of a sudden it bumps a corner and the corner pops off and now you're in trouble. So slow down, be careful. We've got a lot of material to cover. I wanted to start with this, and I think the next video after this is wrapped up is probably going to be one about sharpening. I'm not going to, got a different perspective on it than a lot of people. A lot of people get hung up on how to do it and what to use. They don't understand the angles. They don't understand the results of incorrect sharpening. And so I've got it figured out, I think, where I can give you a demonstration and show you what you need to do, and then how you do it, whether you use a hand, sharpening stone if you're just doing a little bit of work, or if you're using a grinder, powered tools of some type, give you a better perspective on what you need to achieve. And then we've got to get into pointing machines, and I'm going to do on compasses and triangle to get that out, because that's all going to be related to doing the big angel that's coming next. And so I've got to get started on the clay for that, so we'll have some video probably on doing the model. That model will have to be scaled properly because it's not a full round statue where you can just make it and use however much stone you want and you enlarge it as you see fit. It's going to be enlarged as a bas relief, and so it's foreshortened, and so you have to have that foreshortening in the correct dimension, so that when you scale it up, it scales up accurately with the overall height. And so it's a little more involved, but it's not that difficult. And I'll show you how we do it. So there's a lot to come, and then of course they'll be carving the big angel with swinging compasses and using a point machine and all that other stuff. So there'll be a lot to see over the over coming videos. So but I'm ready to cut some stone, get this wrapped up. This is coming out really well. So let's cut some stone. Okay, side number 6 is finished, and it's flat. I mean, like flat, 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 no rock, really good. A little tiny, there's a little low spot here, what it is. And once I got this trued up, got rid of the crown, that side's almost perfect, that side's almost perfect, this side's got a little bit, and this side's got some, so I'll go through and I'll do a final axe on these sides when I have it turned up. I'm going to turn it up, I'm going to cut, probably, it doesn't matter, cut one of them first and just true it up, get this back side through, because the front side we already cut, doesn't have any rock. Right here it's got a little bit of rock, so I'll probably put a line on here to cut it, just to mark it, and just tip the edge in a little bit, just with a really sharp chisel, just so I can try to save any blowout and make it really nice. Just about there. I've already done the edge, and I axed it this way, and then 45, and now I'm going the last final wash over. Back on. I'll check it with my light to make sure I may have to touch that corner, because I don't want to push out, I want to come in instead of going around on the camera. But all these lines are pretty good. I'll axe this edge just a little bit more. This one's really sharp. Nice and straight, nice and straight, nice and straight. And this one's pretty good too. Put a tip on it. 4 more sides to go. Slowly going around. I got to do this side, finish it, and this one, and then tune the back up. It's the same process as always. You know, now that I've got this, this is probably the most out of true panel on the stone. But now that I've got these faces done, went ahead and did this edge, I just finished this edge. I got to tune that edge up a little bit in this one. And then I'll just pull it flat and take off this last like 30 seconds of an inch. It's just got a little bit, not a whole lot. And it's really amazing when you put stuff on and it just sets, and there's no rock, it's just there. And you'll dig and dig and dig, and you know, mark, see where it pivots, take your red pencil, scribble on a little bit, and just work it off. And that the fulcrum, wherever it pivots, will end up moving around as you lower and lower and lower, and take it right down to your line. But if I tried to, you can go all the way to this very finish each time you cut the panel. You can cut every panel perfect all the way to the very end. But if I got down here and cut this whole panel and did my whole perimeter and did all this work and then turned it and blew off a big corner, you know, it doesn't make any sense. So, you know, you do it here at the end, and then you pull it together, and you can slowly get your edges really tight, get rid of most all your crumble, if not all of it, and you'll just have a nice stone. So go slow, be patient. And this is one of the things about this lesson, is that if you're going to cut granite and you're going to use pneumatic tools, you know, and chisels, not die grinders that leave all the facets and blue the stone and they don't look right and whatever. You're going to actually carve it with a chisel and not grind it into shape. This will teach you how to hand axe things. You'll get so much experience right away, and you'll learn how rotating the lines, orienting them from one way to the other way to 45 to 45, how that can address a high spot most effectively. Like you'll learn when you start pivoting that you'll get a pivot. When you get a certain kind of pivot, it makes more sense to turn your tool straight and just push straight in instead of doing it at a 45, and it'll it'll pull that top right off. And the hand axing is really special. Then when you get done, you have this beautiful face that when the light does catch it, it looks perfectly flat, but when the light catches it just right, you'll see all these tool marks that you very carefully put on there. So when you do start doing your final axe, really try to stay disciplined to put your lines on consistently so they don't bend and curve, because when the light's right, people will be able to see them. And if you're carving something, you've got an ornate figure that you've carved, you're going to have to be able to go in there and tool it with your chisel to smooth it up, to make it look the way you want. And this is great practice. You know, you practice on an edge, you think that's special when you're axing around some small detail like fingertips or lips. Nothing like blowing a lip off. You get all carved and you start working it in, and then you slightly check a line when you do the parting of the lips, and you're axing on it and the whole lip just pops right off. You gotta know how to fix it. You gotta know how to not do it in the first place. And first you'll learn how to fix it probably, because you'll have to redo them, and then you'll learn how to not do it in the first place. Practice like this will help you avoid doing that, because you will be able to tool it without stressing these weak features that are very delicate. And this will carry over into the ornate stuff that people want to carve. I know most people don't want to carve a cube out of stone, whether it's granite or whether it's a field stone or whatever. They want to do fancy stuff. They want to do things that people go, wow. But when you can say, okay, you show them a picture of this as a rough stone, and then you say, here you go, cut that with a hammer and a few chisels. No, I didn't put it on a saw and saw it. I cut it with a chisel. They won't be able to understand it. So, and that's how good I want people to be, because they're learning how to do this. So, back to cutting. Okay, I'm down to the last side. Square this face up and flatten it up. What you'll find as you progress is that you'll have, when you fix one side and true it, get it really flat, if the adjacent side has any crown, that edge is going to look like crap. It's going to look like it's all crooked and going all over the place. And then you pull that crown down, and it's great. It fixes it right up. That's why you create this edge by reducing these sides and leaving the edge, more so than cutting a perfect edge, because it's pretty difficult to cut a perfectly straight line. Just to set a chisel in and go right along and cut a perfectly straight line, because you have to do it in two planes. You have to approach it from here and here. If you lower this panel progressively by axing, you cut the bulk of it off, then you axe it down, and you do that from both sides, you can develop a really perfect edge, because you've already put that edge where it needs to be between these 2 points, and then you just work down until they meet. Just like I did with the dormers on that capital. So I've got just a tiny bit of crown in the middle here to take off. And some spots I've got no crown, just a little bit right in here. So keep scraping, almost done. I did get a glove, because this stone is just eating my finger to pieces. And I did cut it. I just wanted to finish this up, but the quartz in this is really sharp. I've got a sliver that I rarely get out of granite unless you really work with something glassy. That's how nasty this is. But on this final panel, I went ahead and I squared it up, got it straight for about half the panel. I still had the crown. I'd straightened all 4 edges. So these 4 edges have got a perimeter that's pretty straight. And then this goes back to what I mentioned before about having a skew in the panel or going too deep. I got this flat, about halfway in, and instead of working it through as this crown fades down to this edge, which makes it a challenge to match it without digging, I rotated the stone 90 degrees, and now I'm about a quarter of the way through. I'll go through this way, so I'm truing it using all four sides. I did two sides for half of it. That gives me a good reference. And then I'll be able to turn it and use these other two sides to finish this off. And when I get down, when I get to where I'm reaching for it, I'll probably spin the stone around just so it's easier for me to work. It takes just a second to pick it up with a crane and turn it around to get a really nice flat panel so I can do that final axe. But turning the stone like this gives you a chance to use all four sides as a reference. It helps limit any skew in the panel, and it'll help produce a flatter surface overall. You can't always move the stone to do it, but when you can, you might as well. It's an easy thing to do. So back to work. It's done. One of the curious things you'll find out when you cut a stone is when it's done, it's done. And you've got to be able to reach a point when things finish, because I could keep scraping on this and tuning it and tuning it and tuning it until it's perfect. And then remember what I said? It's only flat for one tool stroke. You hit it one more time and now it's dished. And so you'll keep going and you'll keep chasing, because you'll try to straighten it up, and you'll dig a little hole, and then you'll push everything down to catch up with that, and invariably you'll make another hole, and you'll just keep going until you run out of stone. And that's another part of this lesson. You've got to quit on your statues. You've got to quit on your fancy carvings. You've got to learn to do that. Realize that you've got it to a point that you probably can improve on. You might be able to, but you probably can't. And so you need to learn when to say when and when to stop. and realize that the next one can be better, or it might be worse. This might be the best thing you've ever cut, and you'll never match it again. And there's some jobs in my portfolio that I look at and I still don't really, I know I was there, but I don't really understand that I did them because they still look fantastic. I don't look at them and immediately see issues that I recognized either at that time or that I see in retrospect looking back at them. So this is done. And this is how you square a granite block with hand tools, with just some chisels and a 9-point, and you know, the saw work that I did, I wanted to be very clear, I didn't cut this with a saw. I just used the saw to open it up to expedite my chisel work and my tool work. So what I'll do now is I'll stand this up, put it on the ground and put plastic over my wood, and I'll acid wash it to clean it all up, to get rid of whatever's left of the red lines. And then we've got a special project for this. We've got an art show coming up, open studio event, and so I hear people talking about, and I mentioned it in these videos, about the stone spoke to me. Okay, whatever you say. If I tell you a bottle of whiskey speaks to me, you're gonna tell me I got a drinking problem. And I probably ought to see somebody. Or if a door speaks to me or whatever, I'm hearing voices, that's probably not good. So, but people say the stone speaks to me. So this stone, as it is now, is going to be displayed at an art show for a couple of months at a local gallery. I've entitled it Kiku. Kiku is Japanese for listen or to listen, and it's in the kanji dialect or form. My daughter knows all about Japanese. I just do what she says. But it's going to be, this is Kiku, and the point of this stone is for people to stand there and observe the stone and listen to it. And we'll see what happens. If it speaks to the right person, maybe it won't come home and it'll get sold. But it'll probably come back to the studio if I have to bet money, and then we'll cut it some more, and if it doesn't, I'll be able to replace it with another piece of stone, and we'll keep working. So I don't know, I mean, we may do something on washing stones, but right now this is finished. And this should wrap up this video series on how to square a granite block. And you can use this to square any type of stone. You can do this with hand tools. It's just going to be slower. You can do it with a grinder and everything, but you got to be able to proof it and get it really square. This isn't perfect. Most of these angles are right about 90 degrees. They're very, very close. The thickness is fairly close. It's a little skinnier on one end than the other. One corner is a little bit low. And I could fix that, but I'm not gonna. It's close enough for this exercise. And we're gonna see if it speaks to anybody. So if it does, I'll let you know. But I really appreciate you hanging out and watching this initial project in the virtual stone carving apprenticeship. I can't think of a better project to get you started. I hope that this is more than just something to watch while you're eating supper or sitting around or whatever. Instead of watching TV, I hope you actually go into the shed or shop or studio or wherever you cut stone out back and do it. Try it. Try a panel. Even if you just try a couple of panels. The things I showed you with plumb blocks and a straight edge to measure down so you can check your depths and all that other stuff. That's how you put together real complicated work. Like, I don't know if I can put stuff in here now. Did a big crucifix, so I had to make some really big plumb blocks to clear the corpus so I could make a really perfect cross and do the panel all around the figure so that the cross looked like a cross that had somebody nailed to it, not like it had a cross that somebody was denting the face of the cross. I did the same thing with the draped cross that has a tapered cross. And it's very easy to do a taper if you have plumb blocks. You just put a plumb block on one end, you cut your desired finish thickness on the other end. And you got your plumb blocks, and you just measure your consistent depth all the way down around whatever carvings you've got. It's not difficult, but most people just don't know how to do it, and they've never learned. And so any type of work that you have to do that includes a flat surface that's produced to support or in conjunction with tangent monolithic other components, something like a plumb block is what you need to use, and you need to understand how to do it. This will teach you how to do it. Try it. Try one panel. Even if you don't have time to do all 6, try one, then try doing the sides. You'll like it, because you'll look at something and you'll understand how to do it. You won't wonder how to guess how to get to that depth or whatever. And you may be fortunate to have a big piece of stone that already has material there that isn't sawed away. So you could actually use that flat face as your plumb blocks to cut your depth, measure down, but you've still got to be able to produce a flat panel around it. So that's what this exercise will help you understand how to do. So, my name's Clint Button here at Carolina Sculpture Studio. I'm a granite sculptor, and I can teach you a lot. This is a fancy finishing technique that has everything to do with carving stone. So I hope you try it. I hope you come back to the next video. We're going to get into some more heavy-headed stuff coming up with point machines and triangles and doing models and getting ready for this big angel that comes in. That'll be slow video, because that's a paid job. I got to get it done. It isn't just where I can take lots of time. So I've tried to spend a lot of time talking about this and all the little things that go into it, because once we get to working on, customers' work, it's got to get done and get out of here. So I won't be stopping to explain why I'm holding the chisel or why I use a red rubber hose or stuff like that. So, like I said, my name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor. Thanks for coming in. This is why people like ornate stone. You get it wet, and it's like it's polished. It shows a lot of color and a lot of figure, but it's a poor stone to carve. But you can, I don't know if you can see the axing on this top. So pretty cool stuff. But this is the granite block squared up. Just don't be distracted by how something looks. If you're going to carve, you need to have stone that's got integrity.